Our non-quorum meeting of the Energy and Environment Committee. For those of you who don't know, there's been a long-standing debate on whether it's energy and environment or environment and energy. I very much wish it were environment and energy because it's easier for me to say. Just going on the well, let me just introduce once again formally. How about I don't do the normal wrestling thing that I do and introduce everybody? How about each of you introduce yourselves as potential new members coming into the committee, and you are all welcome to give informal feedback as we go through the meeting.
Cool. Emily Jones. I lived in Newmarket for 3 years. This is actually my second meeting. I came to the other work session that we did. Is there any other information you want?
That's fine. Whatever you feel like sharing.
Okay.
Favorite color, pets, whatever.
I'm green right now. Yeah.
Green is definitely a good color.
It's the yellow season, but I'm moving into green.
I like it.
I'm Sean. I moved here about a year ago, last March, late March, early April, with my fiance Anthony. I work in healthcare right now, but I'm also taking an MBA in energy and sustainability at Franklin Pierce University, and I've got a couple classes done. A couple classes left to go. I'm sorry. That's almost done. And my favorite colors would have to be green and purple.
Oh, I love it. Yellow, green, and purple. We're Mardi Gras up in here.
And I'm just excited to get more involved and just get my foot in the door.
Not as excited as I am to have you all.
I'm Sarah Stinson. I've lived in Newmarket since 2005. I love this town. My previous civic involvement was serving as a trustee for the library for 3 years, and that was a natural fit for me because I work at the UNH library as the digital collections coordinator there. And so I don't have a strong background in environmental issues, but a strong interest, and I'm really keen to get to know this group and see how I can help. So favorite color, blue.
Ruth Kane. I've lived here 18 years in August. Moved here from Illinois, and I was active in my church there and the church in Durham environmentally on 2 different environmental committees. And colors.
Running with the theme, right?
I meant it facetiously, but everybody took it to heart, so I'm cool with it.
Green.
Green. I think maybe, Joe, you want to...
My name is Joe Lamatino. I've lived here in Newmarket for over 40 years. I'm currently a member of the Newmarket Town Council, and I'm the Town Council representative to the Environment and Energy Advisory Committee. Is
the advisory is important, yes. Yes. Ellen Reed. I am a 3rd term going into possibly a 4th term as state representative representing Newmarket and Newfields. I joined the the Energy and Environment Advisory Committee a couple of years ago, mainly because I wanted to see that resolution pushed through. I've been working on it for a number of years now, and I'm so glad it's in its kind of final stages. My favorite color is teal.
My name is Henry Herndon. I'm a consultant who's here on behalf of Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. You can call us the Coalition, sometimes CPCNH. And I used to live in Durham, so I hung out in Newmarket a good amount. I'm familiar with the town. I think it's a great place. I love Crack Skulls and Oakhouse and the Lamprey. And my favorite color is sometimes green, sometimes blue.
Oh, teal. Hey. Just put them together. Okay, well, great. Thank you so much. So real quick update on the resolution, which isn't really much of an update. We all know that the town council will have its final vote on July 20th. Just as kind of alongside of that, I believe we've surpassed over 100 Newmarketers signing the petition in support of it. And it looks like we will be having a presentation during town council as well from 2 of the towns that have passed this, both Concord and Hanover. The only question that I'm trying to get out of Steve is how long is he going to give us? He said 15 minutes, but there's 2 different towns, so I'm asking for 30, and I am waiting to hear back on that. So I know you guys don't like working. I get it. lead to a longer meeting. But anyway, so that's kind of where we stand. And is there anything, any other aspect of that anybody wants to bring up?
Sorry, you're talking about the resolution, or you're talking about?
The resolution. Yeah, I'm just going through the agenda right now, which is a bunch of small items, and then we'll get into the work session. We will have, hopefully, Joshua Singer will make it, and he said he'd be a little bit late. Oh.
No, that was.
Oh, that was you, okay. And so we'll have a short presentation from him. But, all right, and Button Up. Joe, do you want to speak to that?
So there's a program, and I forget the name of the group there, but they're sponsored by a number of the larger utilities, Eversource, Unitil, and whatever. And basically they present a program, about 90-minute program. They'll do it via WebEx, where they just give you hints on things on how to button up your house or make your house more energy efficient at little to no cost. We're sponsoring that WebEx in the end of September. I think I sent some of you guys the flyer, end of September.
27.
Pretty much it.
Sorry, I have a question about that. So how is that being, like, advertised to?
We haven't done that yet, okay, but I assume that we'll stick it on Facebook on the, what the hell's going on in Newmarket, the particular ones, plus also to the town of Newmarket has its own website. Steve will have them put it there, and I don't know how else we might, if anybody has any good ideas to get it out, the more people we can get it out to, the better. And it's open actually not just to Newmarket and Durham, or if you have other towns, or
No, it's a
if you
webinar,
have friends
so
or whatever.
yeah, open to anyone, technically. I did ask them to do a presentation for this committee to let us know what would be contained in it, and they declined to give us a presentation. Unfortunately, it's because obviously Henry's coming and Josh is coming tonight. But I trust that it's a thorough and worthwhile energy efficiency seminar. So, anything else on Button Up?
That's all I can think of.
Okay, and then Joshua Singer isn't here. We are also a member of Clean Energy New Hampshire, and Joshua Singer should be coming in maybe 15 minutes, I think, to give us a short presentation on what that is, because it's been a while since we've joined, and we're going to have completely new membership by the time we get underway, and basically what our next steps as part of that organization are, the next steps for the town. So since he's not here yet, I would like to turn it over to Henry to do the recap on Community Power Coalition, and we can just see how far we get before Joshua gets here, get to a stopping place, and then we'll let him do his thing, if that sounds good with you.
Yeah, that's great. And if it's all right, I might actually suggest, just so I can see the two of you, I don't know if you might want to, and if you can see the screen, if you even just shift a little bit. Yeah, that could be good. So we're going to get into, at the last work session and possibly at this one as well, we're going to get into some technical energy stuff. So definitely there are no stupid questions. Ask your questions. That's encouraged. We're here to sort of really unpack some of this stuff. And sort of to preface this, while there is some technical jargon going on in what we're doing, I think from the bigger picture, this community power movement that's sort of taking hold in New Hampshire is really exciting and has potential to really transform how things are done. And Newmarket is one of the founding communities of this new member-controlled nonprofit organization, Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. It's operated on a not-for-profit basis, and it is governed and overseen by 19 cities and towns, or 18 cities and towns in one county that participate in the organization, created the organization, appoint representatives to its board of directors. This new statewide organization is a power agency in formation that will provide electricity services to all of the member cities and towns and their residents and businesses. So what community power means and what this electric aggregation plan is, the town of Newmarket, because of this new legislation, can aggregate the buying power of all its electricity users. They can go and the town of Newmarket can form Newmarket Community Power to buy electricity on behalf of everybody in the town collectively. The utility stays the same. Eversource still owns the poles and wires and delivers that power to your home. You're just now as a community choosing where to get that energy from, and as a group, you can get better pricing and more choices collectively. So the Community Power Coalition is the new power agency operated on a not-for-profit basis to help you achieve those goals. So that's sort of the quick overview of what community power is. And process-wise, this is the second work session on the electric aggregation plan. What this plan is the legislation lays out a process that if you want to do community power, you have to form a committee, which you've done. That committee has to develop a plan in accordance with the law, and then bring that to the town council to approve it and say, yes, we want to implement Newmarket community power, and then bulk buy electricity and choose where we get that power from. Importantly, this plan does not commit you as a town to anything. It just gives the town council the authorization to then go out and say, okay, do we want to actually pull the trigger? Is the pricing look good? Can we save people money? Can we get greener energy? So this plan will go through a committee drafting process, which you all may participate in and oversee. And once you've had a couple public hearings, that will go to the town council and staff and the town manager and the attorneys can review it, make sure it's all good to go. And as soon as sometime in 2023, Newmarket residents could all be enrolled into this new Newmarket Community Power Program. One other piece of background, it's Newmarket Community Power will become the default energy supply. So customers will receive a notification that says, welcome, here's your price, welcome to Newmarket Community Power. You're automatically enrolled and you're switched into this program, but it's voluntary. And anybody can opt out and choose to get power from Eversource or from whoever they want to buy it from in the marketplace. Any questions about that overview? Yeah.
Does it affect, some of our neighbors have just started getting solar panels. Does that help them, hurt them? It's indifferent?
It's a great question. So the short answer is indifferent. They will be enrolled in Newmarket Community Power and they will get the same net metering rate. They'll get the same benefits for putting extra solar power into the grid. The longer answer is what these programs really can do in the long run is better encourage rooftop solar. So you could have more advantageous policies for rooftop solar. There are ways to pay solar and solar plus battery storage more during high demand time. So in late afternoon on hot summer days when the air conditioners are all blasting, energy actually costs much more. And it's valuable to have local solar helping to alleviate some of that. So what some of these programs are looking to do is have more avenues for local rooftop solar.
Can I ask a question about the opting out? That's just curious to me. Is there an inflection point where if enough people opt out that suddenly there's not enough of an aggregate for the community to have advantageous buying power?
It's a good question. So this law in New Hampshire is actually the first law in the country in 1995. And it was the first law, but it was broken in that it was an opt-in program. So you have to go door to door and get every single individual to sign up one at a time. In the industry, sometimes customers are referred to as sticky, or I prefer steadfast. So they don't opt. Typically we see 5 to 10% maybe opting out. 10% would be quite high. But generally customers stick with whatever the default option is. So you're right, if there was a problem with if a lot of customers opted out, it would decrease your buying power and your economy of scale. That is unlikely, and that doesn't really the case in programs that are well run.
Thank you.
So
for people who opt out, is there an opportunity for them to opt back in?
Yeah, you can sort of switch. You can pick and choose as a customer.
Thanks.
And there's no penalty one way or the other. So at the first work session, we worked through, this is the draft plan, and we worked through the overview of community power, which discusses a lot of what I just presented as a quick overview, notification, how much electricity is used in Newmarket. You've already sort of gotten the high-level data on this much electricity for the residential, for the commercial, this many accounts. Membership with Community Power Coalition. Again, Newmarket helped to create this nonprofit organization, and some of those details. So I don't think we're going to go all the way through that, but definitely encourage folks to read this document. We discussed the overview of the coalition, and we did some of the exciting stuff, which is Newmarket's community power goals and objectives. And I think what our plan is to pick up on electric aggregation plant statutory requirements. How does that sound with folks?
Do you want to discuss that first sentence again, because that we hung up on,
Sure.
or do you want to
Let's go to the
come back
first
to
sentence,
that?
because this was Emily's laughing because she was here. This was the sticky one. I mean, we got through the rest of the document, and I do have a question later, Henry, but the spoiler for it is, I was wondering if this would be an appropriate document to talk about, like, changing our goals year to year. So let's say we get into this at 22% next year, but we have an internal goal, as the resolution states, of 100% by 2030. So for example, if we wanted to add 12% to that 22% every year, so that the following 2024 would be 34% or whatever. Not to say that we necessarily have to work out those details right now, but I was wondering if this document would eventually be the appropriate place for that, or if it's just going to be like a year-to-year thing, or what.
So I think the answer is yes. It would be appropriate to go into the goals and objectives section, Newmarket Community Power Goals and Objectives, and say we would like to revisit the potential of increasing renewable content year to year and allow for that decision making to occur.
With the idea that this is kind of what we're envisioning at this point. No committal kind of.
I think that's a great idea, and perhaps I don't know if you have something written, or perhaps
No, I was just like literally, it was a shower thought, but.
Yeah, no, I think it would, that's the kind of thing we encourage, is sort of, let's get those goals into this, let's customize this as appropriate.
Because I don't want to be stuck at 22% for the next 7 years, and then all of a sudden, like, 2030, now we have to jump up to 100%. So kind of that steady pressure. I mean, it could be structured anyway. It doesn't have to be 12% a year. It could be like, something ballooning. But I kind of prefer to, like, keep it relatively stable, just so that we get more up front rather than waiting. Like, I wouldn't want to increase it by, I mean, it's possible we could increase it like 5% one year and then 7% the next year, like that. Anyway, we can have that conversation in a bit. Let's go ahead and like the one sticking point, we managed to get through everything that we got through last time without really any disagreements, except for the very first sentence, which is kind of the way it's worded right now. Henry, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's essentially a statement that was put into it basically as something to make towns feel a little bit safer in going into it, by saying we're not going to go into this unless it's economically beneficial, unless it's cheaper than Eversource, essentially. So it isn't really a trigger statement. It's a statement saying we're not going to do this if it's not a better rate than Eversource. And so what I wanted to add, there was a few pieces that can be changed to this. One of the things I wanted to add is I wanted to say, kind of, instead of having it like a negative prohibition on going in, to have it more of like a positive trigger point where we will go in once it performs better for our renewable portfolio than Eversource and is cheaper than or is competitive with Eversource. But then I wanted to give us flexibility to say, what if the situation comes up that for whatever reason it doesn't meet those requirements, but we decide that we as a town, meaning the council, decides that we should enter into it anyway. I wanted to give that flexibility to the town council to enter into it even if we don't meet those particular criteria. So the first change I had was to add the sentence, comma, or if the town council deems that it's in the best interest of Newmarket. So we won't enter into it unless it's better than Eversource, or unless the town council enters into it. And I thought that was fine. And then I got the bright idea that why don't we make it this positive trigger point where we say we will enter into it if it meets those conditions, or if the town council decides. And that's me being a little bit excited to commit to entering into it. Admittedly, we can pull that back and just return it to we'll only enter into it if it meets the condition, or if the town council votes yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. First, I want to make it clear, I don't speak for the town council, okay? I'm the representative here. Everything goes back to the town council. It's them that actually, the group has to make the decision, so I don't speak for them. But I do have a concern about this in the way that Ellen brought it up. The way it's worded, it has an or in there. So technically, somebody could read this as, if it's competitive, and the program will launch if it's able to initially offer residential default rates that are lower than or competitive than those offered by Eversource and provide renewable energy, or upon the determination of the town council. So reading that, somebody could say it is competitive and it has renewable energy, so the heck with what the town council says, we're going to launch. Okay, so I have an issue with that little or in there. So I would prefer to change it to either an and or.
So this was our sticking point. And my point is, first of all, the town council is going to review and have multiple hearings on this document before we ever actually get to the point where we're committing to it. So they're already going to be approving whatever wording goes into it. So the idea of having a trigger there doesn't concern me that, oh, we're overriding the town council, because they're already saying, they're already reviewing this idea that, yes, we'll enter into it. However, if it's a concern, I really don't like the idea that we're saying and, because that kind of doubles the barrier to launching the program, because we're saying it has to meet and the town council has to vote on it. So rather than do the and, I would like to switch it back to the original language and say that we will only launch if it meets those conditions, or if the town council, and by doing it only, it's a negative prohibition, and it doesn't commit us. So, for example, and this is what I was trying to say last time about it being a negative statement, what only does, if I say I only go to the beach on sunny days, I am not saying I will go to the beach any day it's sunny, right? I'm just saying I won't go to the beach unless it's sunny. So by saying only, all we're doing, we're not committing ourselves to launching. We're just saying we're not going to launch unless it meets those conditions. So I'd rather return to the only and keep the or, so we don't have an extra high threshold for launching, rather than have the and have the double high threshold for launching. Did I make sense? There's some grammar in there. There's some logic puzzles in there.
I see what you're saying about
the language.
The threshold, and that it could be prohibitive to have instead of an either or, that it sounds like both. I hear your point.
Both would be hard.
Can I ask? So, and I'm sorry to slow us down, but since I wasn't here last time, I presume that 19 other towns, or 18 in one county, whatever it was you said,
Exactly.
that are part of this, have created a similar document.
Yeah, so this is based on the template that has been used by other communities.
Their language?
It is. So this is one of those sentences that is highlighted as customizable.
Okay.
So what the other communities, sort of the template language said, the program will only launch if it is initially able to offer rates that are lower than or competitive with the utility. And that was sort of, some of the members, they have that as a condition. They want to lower rates. Not all of them. Some of them, and many of them want renewable energy as well, and some of them want a bit of a mix, but there's diversity. But a lot of them customize this. So what we're working on is sort of including some of that renewable energy goal in here as well, and some of the other wordsmithing. And sometimes it can be tricky to everybody all at once kind of write a sentence. So one way we could do this is, I think we could maybe figure it out in this moment, but we could also maybe have this draft, and what I kind of like to do is take a minute with this as well, and maybe put something forward that I think solves sort of what we're trying to get at, and then we can review that. And we definitely don't need this language to be set in stone and finalized today, and I think we definitely have good options. With that said, though, I think I want to make sure I got what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So right now, it's the program will only launch if it is able to initially offer residential default rates that are lower than or competitive with those offered by Eversource.
And so what that is it's not committing us to launching if that condition is met. It's merely saying we're not even going to bother with considering launching unless those conditions are met.
Right.
And we'll start to think about it when those conditions are met. So it's not at all committing us, which is why between the and double threshold versus only, I prefer the only. I just had a moment of excitement where I'm like, why don't we say we're definitely going to launch?
So are we all in agreement that we're going to get rid of the clause that says or upon the determination by town council that launches the program?
No, I think the question is or and I'm solidly in the or camp to the point that I will accept only.
Can I say, I think the only two changes, we want to unstrike only. We want to put the word only back in.
I think I've done that, yeah.
Okay. And then the other thing is an or and I would say, okay, let's at this point leave it with the or,
Okay.
and put a footnote in there for just to, you know, when we talk with the town council, let them.
I don't think we're even using or.
Well,
See
and
what they say.
remember,
I don't know.
Because we can say the program will only launch dash upon the determination.
Right, or
that this is in the best
semicolon
interest,
upon the.
dash, if it is able to initially offer this residential rate.
Yeah.
doesn't that combine the two and kind of create that double threshold again? That double high threshold? So, a different question, Henry. I kind of would like to strike lower than and just say rates that are competitive, because lower than is part of competitive, right? If you have lower rates, you are competitive. So I think it's both simpler and gives us a little bit more leeway to just say competitive rates. And then did you not include the part about provide a renewable energy content that's equal to or higher than Eversource?
So that is included in this draft.
Okay.
Here. On the R lower than, so you'd like to strike the, you'd like it to read, offer residential rates that are competitive with Eversource.
I mean, what do other
Yes.
people think?
Cost
Yeah,
of
no,
the
that's
That
Yeah.
it's a little bit simpler.
redundant, right?
Yeah, the program will only launch if it is able to initially offer residential default rates that are competitive with those offered by Eversource and provide a renewable energy content that is equal to or higher than Eversource, or upon the determination that by the town council that launching the program is in the best interest of Newmarket. And the reason we have that or is, what if we enter into a situation where those conditions aren't quite met, but the town council's like, it's still worth it to us. Maybe they have like a really great renewable portfolio that we can get, but it's going to be 5 cents higher. The town council could go ahead and offer, and since it's an opt-out program anyway, the residents can decide to opt out and go with Eversource. So,
That makes sense, but there should be like a second, I guess, section just on that if-so scenario. If this decision doesn't come, you know, if this isn't made, then we would still launch it based on these factors.
right. The sentence is too long, is what you're saying.
I think so.
It's a long sentence,
Because
admittedly.
I think a lot of people question that, and I think like, if this doesn't happen, then we would do this, but only if.
Right.
And these are the factors.
Do you
Do-
like the
do you-
English teacher in Market is run-on sentence?
Yeah, and
Because a lot of people have questions about that.
Right, because it is pretty broad.
Right, I think because the way it's written now, essentially you're saying the criteria for launching are whatever the town council chooses the criteria to be.
Right, the criteria for launching are the town council decides to launch it. And I'm erring on the side of launching, right?
Yeah.
So the town council decides to launch it, or actually it's not even, it's not a trigger, it's a negative prohibition on launching. So we won't launch unless these things are met, unless the town council says do it anyway. Does that make sense?
No, that
So I think it makes sense, but it,
I'm so
essentially
sorry, I come from a background of writing bills, so.
the second clause essentially nullifies the first clause.
Kind of, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But remembering that the first clause is just a negative prohibition and doesn't actually commit us to anything, I feel like that's fine to do. English is a bitch. Joshua? Joshua? Yes, excellent. Thank you so much.
So
for
what?
going.
One comment on the you were suggesting striking R lower than. That's completely at your discretion if you'd like to do that. One of the nice things about having it in there is if you do have someone who likes to show up at town council meetings and they care a lot about rates or they want the lowest price or they maybe are nitpicky, that kind of language can help sort of bring everybody along. So we could strike it, but that's a good way to sort of
And that's fine. It was just a thought. It
Yeah.
wasn't anything I was married to. I'm much more closely married to the idea that we don't make the barrier to launching overly high. That's my main concern in this, and that we focus on renewable energy.
So I think, do we want to? Are we comfortable with it as it is now, and knowing that this is not necessarily the last chance anyone will have
So
to
I
comment
can't
on
read
this?
the screen because I'm over 40, but the program will only launch if it is able to initially offer residential default rates that are lower than or competitive with those offered by Eversource and provide a renewable energy content that is equal to or higher than Eversource. And you could like divide it up into a new sentence here, or upon the determination by the town council that launching the program is in the best interest of Newmarket. If everybody is kind of like feeling okay-ish about this, I think it's a good stopping point to say we can have any further fine tuning.
I'll just add for Sean that there's a whole bunch of other sections in here that talk about what triggers it and what doesn't trigger it. So this is kind of like an introduction, but further down, when you get down into the weeds, there's actually spells out, okay, we have to do this. It talks about 22% renewable and things like that.
And we can pull, if we can fine tune this language, we can start pulling from this finalized language and pull that into the rest of the document so it's consistent. Is everybody kind of good for now with this sentence? Okay. Is this a good stopping point since we kind of have made at least a temporary piece on the, the introductory sentence?
Maybe we'll pick it back up after Josh does what Josh is going to do. And definitely we'll share, if everyone doesn't have it already, we'll make sure everybody has it to read offline if they'd like as well.
Excellent. So. All right. With that, we're going to kind of stick a pin in the Community Power Coalition stuff. Joshua Singer from Clean Energy New Hampshire is here. He's going to give us a quick presentation on what Clean Energy New Hampshire is, and what our role is, and what we need to be doing as the town of Newmarket as part of Clean Energy New Hampshire. Yeah.
Do you need this?
No, I don't.
Okay.
That's good. Also, apologies for being late.
You're fine.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Clean Energy New Hampshire's program coordinator, so I manage our member municipalities and help you with any things that you're working through, including helping anything that you're working on with Henry over here, and any other projects that you'd like to work on that are separate from community power, such as building weatherization, energy efficiency upgrades. I see you already have LED lights in here, which is great. I know that we've been in talks for a while, but we're here to help you with that. We're currently working on some back-end stuff to our website to help you with more membership-related materials, such as things like our policy director, Kelly, and I are working on a solar pilot program document to help you work through a solar pilot if you're looking to do that, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. We also have some other documents on there that we've either worked through or worked with other organizations to bring together. We've been working with the Southwest Regional Planning Commission to pull, well, that's municipalities in that area, but municipalities in general about what they're doing so that we can use that information to better help you work through your projects and things like that. So a lot of what we bring to the table is experience working with other communities, but also being able to refer you to other communities so you can talk about what worked, what didn't work, and how to move forward. We also work on behalf of you at the legislature. So if you have things that you're trying to push through that you're having trouble with, we can try and incorporate that into the work that we're doing to make sure that we can move forward as a state and our sustainability goals. Currently, we're working on the Drive Electric New Hampshire initiative for EVs, EV charging, and what that can be related to with municipalities is EV charging in your town, people in your town that want to install personal chargers, but also the town itself, and the businesses that work in the town. So making sure that that is something that can be done, that you don't get held up by anything in regards to utilities or policies involved in that. We're also working on the LES conference, which is in October, which as a member you have 2 tickets to, and discounted tickets on further admission. During that we will have a bunch of sessions that will be related to things you might be interested in relation to community power, in relation to sustainability, in relation to building sustainability, and then giving you a chance to talk to the people that are involved in that. So if you've been in contact with any of the manufacturers or construction or Henry, we'll all be there, and you can talk to us about what we're doing in regards to that. Besides that, we're here to make sure that you can move forward with your sustainability goals, making sure that you have a voice in Concord, and that you have someone to ask questions of when you have those questions. And if we don't know those questions, we can either do the research or find the person who does. So that's what we bring.
Awesome. So just to clarify, kind of speaking to the structure of the organization, it's similar to Community Power Coalition in that it's made up of member towns. Is that accurate?
In a way, yes. We're made up of member towns.
What is the deciding entity and how is that structured?
We're a nonprofit in a similar way, except that we are not solely for one type of like Henry works on specifically community power. We do a broad range, including education, legislative advocacy.
Right.
So you wouldn't be being a member of us just for one specific goal, and that's all. That's what we do and focus on. So Henry is an expert on community power.
I just meant the structure.
Yeah.
So in
for-
terms of you,
Yeah, governance-wise, so it's a traditional 501c3 is Clean Energy New Hampshire, and their
Okay.
board is whoever they choose their
oh,
board to
okay.
be.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
the-
just like a nonprofit.
Right.
Yeah.
In Community Power Coalition, it's strictly by intermunicipal agreement where each
Yes.
member appoints representative to the board and controls
That's what
the
I
board.
wanted to know.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so you're just a nonprofit that's here to help coordinate energy goals energy goals of different towns and I guess counties as well.
One of the other key values you have is, there's the network. So there's the business membership and the municipal membership and the individuals. So sort of bringing all those pieces together is a key.
So you need commercial and
Yes.
So if we were to reach, so Newmarket has a resolution that was passed out of this committee unanimously, and it's over with town council, to commit ourselves to 100% renewable energy by 2030, which I think 6 other towns have already done, or 7, I'm not sure. And I have been working with a couple of those other towns, Hanover and Concord. If we were to adopt that, what I've been saying is, how do we get there? Community Power Coalition would certainly be a big tool in that toolbox to get to eventually 100% renewable. But there's also stuff like energy efficiency, right, that can help us get there by reducing the amount of possibly expensive energy that we would need to use. So you would be kind of another tool in that toolbox in that we can come to you and say, how do we become more efficient? What are these other programs? What are other towns doing that is similar?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so we can connect you with other towns that have done similar things. We can connect you with businesses that are also dedicated to this goal, and we can also show you other, essentially, case studies that have happened, if they exist, of towns that have done this and what has worked and what hasn't. And I think that's very important when a lot of this stuff is very new. So you go into something and you're not sure whether it will work or not. And it's very helpful to be able to talk to other municipalities or individuals. Let's say you're doing a weatherize campaign, talk to individuals in the area to see what they've done to weatherize their house, who they used, or the contractors that have been doing this for years, and what they've learned about either getting rebates or what they've learned about what to install, what the low-hanging fruit is. So what's the cheapest option that'll save you the most power? And our business members are very much for all of this. And we had the ERS fight a couple months ago with NH Saves, and we're working through that and trying to just make sure that people can get these efficiency measures done. And that means individuals, municipalities, and businesses, so they can all then work together to make sure that it goes as smoothly as possible.
And so you basically act as a clearinghouse, which is great and a wonderful resource that I think will make the town council feel more comfortable about knowing that there's people out there that they can go to get help. So is there a to-do list that we have as Newmarket that, some items that we need to be acting on? Or
I mean, we can talk after this and go over what. So what I usually do with new members is go over, essentially, I ask, what have you done so far on this list? And we'll go down a list of things that I think, and I'll say, have you done X? Yes or no? Which buildings have you done it for? And we try and figure out what can happen now, what can we move forward on. So you're already working on community power, which is amazing because it's a big lift. But there's other stuff that you can do that's probably lighter that you can do along the way. So a lot of people want to start with, let's say, a large solar installation, and I have to let them know that that's probably a year or two down the line, depending on how long permitting permitting takes.
But you could do LED light bulbs.
No, but exactly. So it'd be easier to get an allotment from your town or money to do LEDs and to say, this is exactly how much it's going to save you. We have the statistics. We can get it installed. Here's an installer to do it, and we can do it by next year.
Ooh, what about an exchange program where people bring in their incandescents and we give them
I mean,
LED light bulbs,
stuff like that,
which are getting really cheap, by the way.
They're very cheap. I think they're
Like
probably
50 cents a piece or something.
yeah, they're probably I think only 30% more than incandescents now, and they last a lot longer. But stuff like that, there's been many weatherized campaigns that are similar to that usually include some sort of LED retrofits or things like that. NH Saves runs the Utilities Fund, a program where they'll come in and do a presentation for you.
And we're doing Button Up this fall.
Oh, great. So you've already got on that.
So can I have you back or in some other way, perhaps on email? Because just so you know, you're sitting amongst 4 new members, right, that are going to be joining most likely. And so really the only official members here right now are me and Joe. So can you work with us, like, say, next month and, like, kind of going down that list and saying, here's where you are on this, you haven't done anything on this, you're halfway through on this, you know, kind of thing.
Okay.
Sorry.
Have you done anything or any of your partners with helping a town develop their master plan for energy?
A little bit. I've worked through a couple. I haven't directly helped design them. So I've looked through to see if anything was missing or if some things maybe shouldn't be added. But it really, yeah, I mean, what I would do for that is probably send you a couple examples of ones that I think are good.
Just
and
New Hampshire. Have you just done New Hampshire?
Yes.
Okay.
Specifically, New Hampshire towns that have written up ones that I think are good and that are towns that are similar sized to you, and then have you put in some of your information and then go over it with you.
Oh, similar to this. Excellent, because part of our resolution is the creation of an energy plan, which we don't have. So we need a comprehensive.
Attleboro, Massachusetts, was something already that we're trying to do here.
Nice.
Okay.
Well, one of the things we're going to get involved in, I took a cut at that, ripping stuff off from Hanover and Rye, but certainly it's far from anywhere near ready for prime time. I think that'd be a great thing that we can all work on at some point in time too. That this
Absolutely.
committee definitely can
be
work
happy
on
to
that.
Absolutely, and it's in the resolution that this committee would help the town council with the plan, so. Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments from anybody?
Does the town? There's a fee to join, right? $250.
Oh, you're already members.
Do we have to renew? Do we have a renewal
Yes,
coming up?
It's once a year. It's $250, and you get with that you get access to all of our member resources.
Okay.
You get access to all of the member webinars and events that we have, depending. So it's either free access to all the webinars or discounted access to any of the events that we have.
Do you automatically bill the town, or do I have to, as the representative, have to bring anything to the?
I'll send
Town
you.
council?
I'll send you a renewal notice.
Okay.
And I can send that to whoever you would like, either yourself or the town clerk or whoever that may be.
If you could send it to me, and I'll forward it to the town manager and the town chair, the town council chair, and
Perfect.
they can tell me what they do next.
Okay.
When did we join? It was 2 years ago or 3?
I think it was 2 years ago. I'd have to check.
I remember it was one of the first things that we did when I joined
Yes.
this committee.
But you have with membership now, you get access to the members side of the website, which we made up, so that has all the policy resources. So if you're interested in that, you can go there. If you feel like you won't do that, you can just sign up for the policy newsletter. So as a member, everyone in the committee can be part of that newsletter, and you'll get that once a week during the legislative session.
Can anybody on the committee here have access to the websites and whatever? So
Yes.
we can make it available to all the team members.
So
Okay.
you have to send me their name and email, and then you go onto the website and click I want to be a member and fill out your stuff, and then I can approve you on the back end.
Okay.
And that means then you'll get access to all of that, and you can sign up the policy newsletter there.
I'll be very interested in the legislative side of it. There was a bill this time around that was like prohibiting towns from prohibiting certain types of energy. You're familiar with that? Did that die? That died in the Senate, yes? Or did it pass?
There's a ban on bans.
A ban on bans,
I think
yes.
I think that passed.
Did it get signed?
I think it did.
Oh, okay.
It's
Did it really? Wow.
It's-
It was a ban on banning natural gas hookups.
Right, so like literally towns wouldn't be able to say, you can't burn tires. Like it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Right. No, yeah. So this was, okay, I'm so sorry to hear that passed. Okay.
I will just say, Clean Energy New Hampshire's policy work and policy resources is fantastic, and there's no one else in the state that has that kind of comprehensive coverage of the legislature and all the energy bills.
And we actually expanded it because we just hired on Chris Gogland, who's now working at the PUC. So we're going to also be tracking more PUC dockets than we ever could before.
Oh, wow.
What's the PUC?
That's the question.
It's Public Utilities Commission. They regulate the utility companies.
Henry was trying to help the group.
Yeah.
Right.
The group was all like, we're not going to.
No acronyms in public.
True,
Yeah.
true. So we've been tracking that, and we're going to try and disseminate that information from I'll call it like PUC language into something that people can digest and learn about, because it's something that's been essentially behind the curtain, and we can't do day by day because a lot of it is a lot goes through. But we can let you know that these dockets are happening and what our stance is, and let you know what the results are then.
Just as an example, and I hate to go into a legislative story, but oh gosh, it's like 5 or 6 years ago, the power entity that powered downtown Concord, especially like the State House, Liberty Utilities, their infrastructure there was just crumbling. It was really bad, and we had to do something to enable. And please correct any part of this because this is old in my memory, to allow them to basically update it. And the PUC sent out a request for proposal for different companies to basically take it over. 2 companies, Liberty Utility, I'm sorry, it was Concord Steam that was the original company. So Concord Steam was going under, and Liberty Utilities and Green City Power both put in a proposal, but the problem is Liberty Utilities had basically worked with the PUC to essentially customize the request for proposal for themselves. So like it was tailor-made for them, and this was all kind of backroom stuff. And Green City had the better, by far, I thought the better proposal, which was they would take on all the costs of the infrastructure for building the infrastructure. The state wouldn't pay anything, and then they would guarantee us a rate. Neither of which was true for Liberty Utility. I can tell you it was like all of 15 people in the State House voted to help Green City. They basically handed it over to Liberty. So I was very disappointed in that outcome. That's my experience of the PUC, for whatever that's worth.
I can't speak on that. I wasn't here for that. Henry, did you know about that? Or?
I'm not familiar with that specific.
Oh, okay. Well, it's like 5-6 years ago. Look it up. It's an amazing story. Anyway, thank you so much for coming. If there's no other comments, we're going to switch back over to Henry. But
Yeah, of
I
course.
look forward to working with you once we all become an official committee.
Yeah. You have my email.
Yes.
If you ever want to talk or have any questions, just send me an email and we can schedule time to talk or go back and forth via that.
Okay.
But I'm around.
Is the best way forward maybe is to just send us an email as the committee. I'll copy you on with everybody and send us an email like kind of like bullet point. These are the different programs that are going on and where you stand on each one and what you could be doing.
Sure.
Cool.
Can do. Thank you.
So
Thank you.
I will send you a quick note with my email, and you'll send me the invoice. And
Yes. Can do. All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
You gonna stick around and learn about electric aggregation plants?
I think so.
That backfired on you.
Yeah, he said PUC, but there's
I have personally.
this is an EAP. It's an electric aggregation plant. Yeah, there's all kinds of horrible jargon.
CPC, CE and H.
Yeah.
We have an EAP, which we're working on, but we are the EAC as well as the EE. It's very confusing. It's just letters, just put all the letters together.
When I see EE, I just think energy efficiency.
Close enough.
Just anything
Close.
that's capped on top is much better. You just don't want stuff that shines out.
All right. Thank you so much, Josh. Is it Josh or Joshua?
Josh is fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
I figured Henry knew. I think your emails only said Joshua, but if Henry called you Josh, then I would call you Josh. All right. Okay. Back over to you.
So let's do a quick recap of the community power goals, objectives, and requirements, just for the folks who weren't here last time, and then we're going to get into sort of what the part that's required by law. But essentially, this is laying out your goals for the program, your objectives, your requirements, and there's some customizations that the group has made. But essentially, the Newmarket Community Power affords the town the capacity and flexibility to realize and build on our policies pertaining to renewable and carbon neutral energy, economic development, and infrastructure. And then this sort of, I think what Councilor Lamatino has done is inserted a couple. Oh yeah, so here's sort of just some of the high-level bullet points that we walked through last time, but really this is about competitive rates, expanded choices, and again, we're sort of revisiting some of that language from the first sentence in this, so we want to just maybe think of that as we're customizing the two. Fiscal stability and financial reserves, one of the things that this coalition does is it puts the membership in control of the revenues associated with these power sales. So rather than signing a contract with a broker who then signs you up with a supplier and they sort of take the overhead and the margin and the revenue on the other side of the deal, the coalition really in-houses that for the members. So they're selling you your electricity. That electricity cost pays for the staff that run the program, and then margin above that is accrued into the reserve account on behalf of the members to do with as they choose. So you're actually capturing the revenue from these sales as a community and as a coalition. That makes sure you have long-term rate stability. Was it you going to ask about that? Or?
I was wondering how it worked, basically, if that makes sense to me.
Yeah, so how
It's pretty interesting.
how it works
It's like
is,
guarantees rates.
yeah, it's you build up this cushion of reserves, and then that protects you. That does three things, really. If prices change in the future, you have a healthy cushion and you don't have to increase rates. You can sort of protect against rate volatility. And then I guess maybe two main things. The second thing is now you have cash, which enables you to do local projects. So you could either spend that directly on reducing energy usage in buildings or local energy projects. More common is so building a solar field, but the nuance is you won't necessarily actually spend your cash on the solar field. It's a reserve, and then there will be a developer and a financier, and you'll say, look, we have a reserve, we have a healthy business model, we have long-term rate stability.
And those reserves are per town. Like they don't all go into the coalition, just become one reserve, right? Like each town has its own reserves within the coalition.
Almost. So there's sort of a minimum threshold where the coalition as a whole needs a reserve to be stable and long-lasting. Anything above that minimum threshold is each member can control.
So you can put that back into investing to strengthen the program. The thing that I found exciting, and I've said all along, is while I think a lot of people are thinking of this as like, this is great, we can find sources of energy and kind of aggregate and become, a larger purchaser of this energy together, that we can, and especially we can do it on our own as one town, and they have the expertise, or they can hire the expertise to help us if Newmarket wanted to build a solar field, or if Newmarket and Durham wanted to go in together and build a solar field together, something like that. That is something I found very exciting, those possibilities. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's great. So I think this is sort of the exciting part of the document. So, consumer protections and public advocacy is one of your goals. So, the coalition already, these collective towns have done a lot of work at the State House. There was a really great example in 2021 where, 2 years after this became law, Eversource put forward a bill that would have rolled it back, gutted it, and all these communities, including Newmarket, sort of came together, spoke with one voice at the legislature, re-educated these confused legislators, and were able to turn that bill around. And that's sort of just like foreshadowing, I think, some of the public advocacy potential of ensuring that customers and communities are represented, and we're pushing forward with smart 21st century energy policy, and working in collaboration with other partners. Customer focus, how can we give customers better products and services? That could be lower rates, that can be green options where you can choose oh, I want to pay, I choose to pay a little extra for a greener option. That's something that's done here. And resilience, focusing on developing other local energy solutions, collaborating regionally with other partners, grid modernization. We get a little jargony further down we go, but these are all sort of part of the things that we've discussed in our key goals and objectives.
And since this is under goals, that first point where we talk about the renewable portfolio, would that be an appropriate paragraph to put in like some very broad non-committal statement about the overall goal is to increase our renewable energy portfolio, starting with the 22% and increase it by like 12% a year or something like that?
I think that's exactly right. So maybe in this bullet that's cleaner local power, Newmarket Community will prioritize development of cost-effective projects to supply an affordable energy portfolio. So again, I think this bullet's not about affordability, so maybe you want to lose this word here because that's covered elsewhere.
Well, I think affordability is still an important aspect.
Diversified.
Yeah, affordable, diversified. Did folks object to that?
I don't object to diversified, but being an advocate for poor people in general, I generally like to keep affordable
Yeah.
everywhere.
And then I'm just going to put a little bracket here and say, inserting text referencing goals to increase renewable content over time.
Yeah, yearly until 2030.
Yeah.
With 100% being the 2030 goal.
And maybe even reference specifically the resolution.
Sure.
Did you say 12% or?
I only divided, because we're going to start in at 22 because that's what Eversource has. So if we start in at 22% in 2023, we have 7 years to get to 100.
If we lowball it, then we could exceed those goals every year.
Well, you mean if we did higher than that?
Yeah, 5 to 10% each year.
How would we exceed the goal? We'd have to do 12, right? Is my math wrong? 12%?
No, I mean,
Hold on.
we could exceed our yearly.
I just did it in my brain, so hold on.
Are we saying by what year? Sorry.
2030.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it's only
I thought
7
it was a little bit longer
years
timeframe.
for 78% divided by 7 is,
Okay.
it's really 11 point
11.
something, and that's why I rounded up to 12.
One
30.
one other sort of recap item, I'll just for everybody. This is sort of a picture of right now what the plan is presenting as the default. What the automatic thing everyone would get enrolled in is maybe 5 to 10% more renewable energy than Eversource's minimum, which is like 22% right now, and a price that meets or beats. And then optional products where folks could, opt down to less renewable energy and lower rates, or opt up to 50% renewable energy, Green Start product, or opt up to 100% renewable energy product. So these aren't imposed on anyone, but they can choose them as options.
So we just put solar on our house. However, we're only at 50% output because if we did 100%, we'd have to redo the rest of our roof. So would we be eligible for this coalition if we were to do this?
Yep, you could participate in Newmarket Community Power. You'd get the same net metering sort of solar product you're getting as you're getting right now. Whatever you put it back into the grid, it's an identical product. And then what these programs are looking to do is sort of find more opportunities for folks like yourself who have solar on the roof. How can we get you better deals because you're actually lowering the amount of power we need to buy from elsewhere because your solar is going back on the grid and feeding your neighbor. How can we help you put your power on the grid when we need it most in the late afternoon, which is when you're generating? So there's sort of, that's a longer term evolution of these programs, is do more for folks like you who have solar.
You would just be doing that with Newmarket Power, which is CPC, instead of with Eversource.
Yeah.
It'd just be a different name on your bill, but we would be
I like
the good
that.
guys.
I mean, that's exciting.
Question about the net metering stuff, and it might be too technical and we're nowhere near there to give answers to this, but I know that there's a lot of consternation amongst people who do the net metering and have solar panels about what the buyback rate is. And some of them do it over a month period where they, see what the price of energy was, and they basically are shortchanging the solar panel people, the people who have the actual panels, by buying it back for less money than they sold it for, essentially. So I think the preferred way is by the day, to get the price by the day, so that if you sold it to them that morning when it was sunny and then you had to buy it later, you should be able to get it at the same cost. But a lot of times it's like you end up paying more to buy it than what they paid you for it.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're referring to, but before 2017, whatever you paid the utility for electricity, they paid you for solar energy that came off of your roof onto the grid. And it was a one-to-one.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 17, the Public Utility Commission changed the rules because of a law, and they sort of cut back how much we pay solar, and they said you're going to get slightly less. So when you pay EverSource, you pay them 100%.
Transmission fee.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
they took out 25% of the distribution charge and some other charges. So it's not a one-to-one. You get paid less than you pay the utility. So it's slightly less attractive than it was before.
But the rate, my understanding is the rate, and we're probably too far afield because that's probably not anywhere near where CPC is at the moment, but the idea is the rate, how they determine the rate at which they pay you for your solar energy apparently changes from company to company. And some of them like average out the rate over the previous month, and some of them will give you like
Okay.
the same rate for that day or whatever. So
I'm not exactly familiar with this, but it's possible. Okay, yeah.
All
So I think we're going to get to a new section now.
all right,
Um,
my computer died, so
and maybe we'll do a quick, so it's 8:04. What are we thinking for this work session?
last time there was we weren't too happy about going all the way until 9. How do people feel about 8:30, 8:45? Shoot out some times.
8:30 feels good.
Let's aim for 8:30, and I think what we can do is we'll get through basically the rest of the body of the document actually, which is electric irrigation plan statutory requirements. This is
You can Zoom? Oh, thank you.
This is what is laid out in the law. So, literally, bullet for bullet, the law says you have to address the organizational structure, methods of entering into and terminating agreements, operating and funding the program, how you set rates, costs, enroll customers, options. So we'll talk through this, and I think we could do that in sort of 25 minutes here.
Where do we pull this up from? The Newmarket website? Or?
Right now, it's just a document that's circulating, and
Henry's going to share with all of the updated comments, share a document, and I will make sure everybody gets it.
So I didn't miss it somewhere
Tonight.
along the line.
I don't think so, because again, I was like kind of bringing in the new people as we went, so you may have missed, like, I may have added you later than I shared it or whatever.
so the statutory requirements, they're listed here, and we'll take them one at a time. So first is the organizational structure, and it says upon approval of the plan, Newmarket Community Power is going to be authorized to provide electricity and other related services for participating residents, businesses, and customers, and that the Newmarket Town Manager, with guidance from the Town Council, will oversee the program and has overall authority over it. So that's after your Town Council votes for this plan and says we're going to do this. Decisions for amending and modifying the program can be done by the Town Council.
I have a question.
Yep.
Was that a change that was already, is that
Yeah.
default, or was that like a Joe recommendation?
I added the Newmarket Town Manager, but
Yeah, can you give us the original suggestion? Because
it just said the original, I believe, was just the Town Council will oversee the program.
I prefer town council because they're in the elected positions, whereas the manager is not an elected position.
But the manager works under the guidance of the
Oh,
Town
no, I'm
Council,
aware.
but the manager has broad authority.
Yeah, I remember the constitutional changes or the charter changes that we undertook several years back, and I found them to be.
My recommendation is we leave the town manager in.
It's going highlight this as a point that we're going to have to come back to.
Henry, can I ask how other towns
He-
face this? Is it uncommon to
Select
see
board.
power beyond the town council?
I think it depends. I'll have to double check. My guess would be some small towns may have it lie with the select board. Some of the medium-sized towns or the cities might say city manager, but I think it's probably both are perfectly acceptable from our perspective.
Town CEO.
Well, that, yeah, we sometimes refer to them as CEOs as a catch-all. Admins, managers, whatever, they are the CEO. So I'll just say for continued discussion.
Sounds good.
And then this is just, so we'll talk a little bit about we have talked about these and we'll continue to talk about them, but there are two main policies that will come after you've approved this plan. It's energy risk management and financial reserves. And this will lay out how the coalition can sort of set rates on your behalf and collect those revenues on your behalf and manage. You're nodding because it sounds like you're familiar with risk management.
I have, well, in the degree program I'm taking, it's all about risk management and financial policy.
Right. So
To
that
make energy happen.
that's how, yeah, so that's how this all works is you'll have a policy that says you can't take crazy risks in the power sector. You have to have sort of parameters around what kind of contracts you're entering into to ensure that the program has longevity.
I'm just so glad we're going to have somebody who understands this.
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
And so it's exciting that you're interested in the committee because these are going to be documents that will come to the committee and then to the town council and to the lawyers and the manager, and they will be the nuts and bolts of how the program operates. This is just referencing that your town has appointed representatives to the board of directors of the coalition. That's town councilor Tony Weinstein and town manager Steve Fournier as the alternate. So they sit on the board. The board is currently overseeing the startup operations, the request for proposals to hire the firm that will conduct risk management and procure power and manage all the operations in the back end, mail the customer notifications, handle the data. That's overseen by your community among the other 18 communities. This is more of that, overseeing the startup, providing input on policy matters, and sort of directing the staff. The next portion, so you are designated as the Electric Aggregation Committee, or the EAC, if we want to get into the jargon.
Not to be confused with the EAP.
Yeah.
The EAC is the EE.
Yeah. Is the EEAC.
The
Like we're not the
EEAC.
PUC.
No, not that one. So, in your role is really, after you produce this plan, input advisory support to the Newmarket Town Council, and helping with public education and community engagement.
Just to be clear, I added to the Newmarket Town Council.
Says Newmarket.
I know, I think there was just this minor typo.
Okay.
That's a struck letter.
Oh, okay.
I spelled Newmarket wrong. You think it's after 40 years, he knows how to spell it.
So that's the organization of the program. So governance by the town council and/or town council in consultation with the manager, and representatives on the board of the coalition, staff, and vendors within the coalition. That's how the structure of the program operates. Method of entering into a terminated agreements. This is fairly straightforward. This plan authorizes the town council to negotiate, enter into, modify, and enforce and terminate any agreements. So you're just giving the town council the authority to sign contracts with the coalition or another service provider if you would choose. This does not require you to use Community Power Coalition. Operation and funding. You will contract with qualified vendors and creditworthy energy suppliers to provide service, credit support, and electricity. This plan assumes, but it does not require, that you will participate in the coalition, so that you're making no commitment with this plan. And if you do work with a coalition, then you get the benefits of all of our shared services. So again, these 19 communities, 20% of the state's population that are pooling their buying power, and will hire expert staff internally to manage this on behalf of the collective members. So Newmarket doesn't have to go hire its own staff, and every individual town doesn't, but you all get sort of stronger together. And then during the startup phase, the service providers, this is operated on a model where, for the most part, the companies that are selected to run power procurement, they will do so on a deferred compensation or at-risk basis. That means that nobody pays them up front. They spend money and they incur costs up front, and then after the program launches and the electricity starts flowing and the cash flow begins, then they will be compensated. Up until that point, they're not compensated. If the program doesn't launch, there's no obligation to pay them. That's not the case for actually myself. I'm on a 2/3 upfront, 1/3 deferred compensation contract. There's a law firm that's on 100%. The general counsel is a national law firm that's got 50 years of experience. They're on 100% deferred compensation contract. And there's technical consultant Samuel Golding, who's on a 50-50. Okay, so the folks who will run this program, this is getting into some of the technical stuff, but so risk management again. And really what this is load serving entity services. There is a whole new appendix on what this term means. Essentially, anyone who's buying electricity on the other end of your electricity purchase is a load serving entity. This is just the term for the company that's responsible for every electric customer, and they're responsible for ensuring that every kilowatt hour consumed is matched with a kilowatt hour in the wholesale market. So right now, you all buy through Eversource. Eversource picks an energy supplier and they sign a contract with them. That energy supplier is a load-serving entity for whoever's buying Eversource power. Similarly, the coalition will contract with an entity that is the load-serving entity. They're just responsible for matching every kilowatt hour consumed with every kilowatt hour purchased in the market.
So is the load-serving entity not the power generator company? The company that actually creates the power? Is that another middleman in between? Yeah,
there's a lot of layers. So the load-serving entity, they're transacting with various suppliers and generators. So they ensure that they're buying on one end from the suppliers and generators, and that there's a customer on the other end that's buying. So you have
I don't know if this is right. Yeah, on the customer end, you have this. Is it the servicer? Because that will still be Eversource. They own the lines. They do
delivery, which is distribution, transmission, poles and wires. Yeah.
All right. So they're still there.
Right.
But then you have kind of what we want to step in as, which is the
supply.
But then we go to the LSE.
That's right.
Who then goes to the whoever's right. Making the power.
That's right. This is a complex machine.
There's 4 steps.
This is
it's like a step in, and then step off.
If you go from power to house, there's 4 different entities.
Okay. So this is your homework assignment is to read attachment 10, which explains this in detail. And it's worth it. It's, I think, educational. And so again, sort of stepping back for a second, really part of the value of this coalition model and what we're trying to achieve is we all have energy and climate goals. We want to get those things done. There's a lot of technical complexity in how the electricity system works. And there's, through this model, a lot of education and knowledge transfer where you have the experts who are actually now on your side of the table through the coalition who are working hand in hand with communities and folks such as yourself who can actually make this happen for the town of Newmarket. And definitely drinking from a fire hose, and glad to have people on board for that process.
And it's so nice to be able to, as a town, try to do this and know that we have access to experts that will walk us through the process and take care of the heavy stuff. Because certainly if it was all up to Newmarket, this would never get done.
And just to sort of lean into some of that complexity, so there's portfolio risk management advising, so that's buying the power, and load serving entity services, that's part of that. Financial services, electronic data interchange services with the utility. So the other thing the coalition will do is receive from the utility customer usage and account data for every electric customer that is going to be enrolled in the program, so that they can bill those customers and understand how much power to buy. So that's part of the back end as well. And somebody's doing, either the supplier you sign a contract with is doing that, or the coalition's vendor, somebody's doing that behind the scenes. We're sort of bringing some transparency to that. Customer notification. So sending a mailed notification. Welcome to Newmarket Community Power. Here's your rate. Check the box if you want to opt out. managing the data, managing the billing, managing relationships, call centers, websites with the customers. So these are all of the things that are currently, the coalition is currently has a solicitation process where they're reviewing proposals from numerous companies to provide all of these services.
Vendors, essentially.
Who are the vendors?
These are vendors.
These are
These are
vendors,
all
correct.
vendors, yeah.
So there is a process overseen by the board and the member representatives on that board to review some very impressive national and regional proposals right now to provide these services. There's folks in the industry are excited about the possibility of this succeeding in a big way. So again, check out that attachment if you want. So it's just sort of going through more of the operations, you know, budgeting, setting the rates, helping develop those solar projects as time goes on, ensuring that we're complying with regulations, engaging at the legislature and the regulators to ensure that community interests are met. These are all going to be done through staff and third-party services. So Newmarket is going to provide all requirements electricity. That's a regulatory term that just means when we buy electricity, you're actually buying all of these things. So you get an energy supply rate and you say, oh, energy supply. But in that is something called capacity. That's the peak load for the year. Ancillary services, I don't even know what that means.
All the other stuff we didn't describe.
These are all, they're sort of regulated components. They're many of them are very small. And in addition to this, generally the supplier has a risk premium, so they mark it up because they're taking on some risk of price changes, and then their margin. So that's all hidden in your supply rate, and what we're doing is we're going to unpack that, and we're going to make that transparent, and we're going to make sure you're actually in control of that margin. We're going to comply with, there's a state requirement for the amount of renewable energy. Right now it's 22%, so we'll comply with that. And there's a whole attachment on that. Sort of just more on the background, you know, credit ratings and investment grade counterparties is important. So just, you know, making sure you're signing contracts with reputable and investment grade sort of credit worthy suppliers. And let's see. There's a portion of the legislation that creates avenues for potentially upgrading infrastructure such as electricity meters. Eversource has like 1970s, 1980s technology right now. They drive a truck by once a month, ping it with a radio, and you get one data point per month per meter. There's a lot of innovation and cost reduction you can do if you have modern meters that collect data, you know, day to day or more granularly. And this is just referencing that down the line through regulated processes, there are potential avenues to partner with utilities to get better meters, to get better data, so folks with solar can get better pricing, essentially.
Is that what they called smart metering?
Smart metering.
There was some controversy over that, privacy issues or something like that. Was that the problem?
So I think, you know, privacy is an important issue. Oftentimes you'll hear some of the folks at the State House or sometimes some of the utilities at the State House fearmonger around issues like, oh, privacy, like let's kill this opportunity if it's an innovation. So I mean, there certainly are.
Doesn't seem like it'd be any more of a privacy issue than your phone, right?
Yeah, I mean, even if you knew how much energy a person used, I mean, you know, so that would be protected, but there's still not.
But even if they were able, somebody somewhere was able to hack that.
Right,
then
it's
that's
sort of
no worse than hacking like your text messages.
The risk is very low.
It's like, oh, they used a lot of electricity at 3 p.m.
Targeted advertising.
What are they doing
It's
at
gonna
3
listen to
p.m.?
what you're talking about.
Targeted advertising. Yeah, okay. So is that the whole thrust of the controversy then? I just remember it being controversial.
Yeah, I mean, generally it's just, you know, you use modern technology to give yourself tools to lower costs.
And that saves the money of sending someone around to look
Yeah.
at meters.
Yeah, and they're not expensive. I mean, they're
Yeah.
it's this it's yeah, and so this is just sort of referencing that like if you have better meters, you can help customers adopt and use innovative technologies. This is like building management systems that turn the power down when you're not in the room, smart thermostats, home battery storage, electric vehicle chargers that charge at low cost times instead of high cost times. These are all sort of things we're working towards a little longer term. This all also it's sort of about empowering the community, but also you do it in a way where it's not like everyone goes and buys an electric vehicle, everybody comes home at 6 o'clock, plugs in their electric vehicle, there's a huge spike in energy demand. That's really costly. There are easy, smarter ways to do that where you have a meter that says plug in your EV, automatically turn on the charger at 9 p.m. when electricity usage is falling off, and you get a way cheaper rate for that.
And with the smart metering, you could even do that like in coordinated waves so that you don't have, because you wouldn't want everybody doing it at 9 o'clock or else you get a spike, right?
Yeah,
Like,
so you're exactly right, where eventually maybe there's so many electric vehicles, you have tranches where,
Right.
okay, this third goes on at 9,
Exactly.
and this third goes on at midnight, and this third, yeah.
Sweet.
Rate setting, cost, enrollment, this is important. So customers who choose not to participate in Newmarket Community Power shall not be responsible for any costs associated with the program, apart from incidental costs incurred by the town prior to the point at which the program starts producing revenue from participating customers. What this means is no taxpayer money is spent on this except for incidental costs. What that means is if you have your town staff or lawyer review this document, there's a cost associated with that, that's fine. They can do that. But the taxpayers, above and beyond that kind of sort of incidental to setting up the program, taxpayers don't pay for this.
they pay for the Xerox copies like ahead of time that we did before, but not after.
So yeah, you can't impose costs on folks or tap into the taxpayer. So rate setting. Again, we've got sort of, I think, recurrence of the original language. Newmarket Community Power will only launch if it is able to offer residential default rates that are initially lower than or competitive with those offered by Eversource. I'm just going to have a comment that says reconcile with initial sentence once finalized. How's that?
That's perfect.
So the program will strive to maintain competitive rates for the default service customers, as well as customers who opt in or opt up to receive optional retail products. That means like 50%, 100% green, while working to achieve the goals, which we've discussed. This is, again, referencing the town will adopt an energy risk management and financial reserve policy.
You can delete my comment on that one, where I asked for examples.
Okay. Delete it.
Okay, but you can keep the next comment,
Okay.
or we can talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it. And this is saying that rates will be set at a level such that revenues from participating customers are projected to meet or exceed the costs of the program. It should maybe self-explanatory. So this is the other exciting piece. So the reserve account, which we've talked about, to ensure financial stability of Newmarket Community Power, a portion of the energy revenues will be deposited in a financial reserve account, and that fund will be restricted for use for, in the near term.
I added the term energy there again to ensure that it's non-taxpayer related.
I think that's
Right.
And if
It's- I mean,
everybody's
this- yeah.
okay with that, you can delete the comment, accept the change.
Oh, I see. You said you added the term here.
Mhm.
Energy. Yeah.
So those reserves in the near term, that's about maintaining competitive rates. As rates change, prices change, you have a reserve account to smooth that for the customers. In the medium term, that's collateral for power purchase agreements, including development of renewable energy and battery storage projects. So again, the nuance here is we talked about this a little bit, but you're not necessarily going to spend your reserve account cash on a solar panel. you're going to have a reserve fund, and then a developer and a financier is going to say, look, they've got stable rates, they have a long-term business plan, we're going to spend our cash, build a solar array, and we're going to sign a power purchase agreement with you. And you're going to agree to buy our electricity over time. So it's just a nuance in how it's financed.
Could we not, though? Couldn't we
You could.
build our own?
You could, and actually, importantly, so revenue bonding is an option here. This is where the town, through the community power, can issue bonds for projects. So you could self-finance by bonding for a solar plus storage array as well. But there's various approaches where you absolutely, it's.
Because I know in the past, because we have a couple of dams in the past, people have mentioned, well, wouldn't we be able to do hydroelectric here in Newmarket because we have these dams already? Why not put them to use since we've already done the damage of having the dam some 200 years ago? So since we have the damage already, why not generate electricity and other ideas as well? But the point is that you all would be able to hook us up with the people that would actually get it done properly.
And I'm just realizing this third bullet is actually exactly what you said. For the long term, these funds may be used directly to fund programs.
Right.
So.
Can I just quickly, in the near term, are there best practices that guide how the reserves are used to manage price fluctuations? Like, who decides? Like, we'll absorb X amount for 1 year, but maybe 5 years out. Does that make sense?
No, you're exactly right. And so I am not the person who is the expert in the best practices, but what I can say is the design of this agency, it's based on numerous agencies from across the country that do this. In many cases, it's municipal utilities that also own the poles and wires will come together and form it's called a joint powers agency, and they will pool all their resources, and that entity will do the risk management and have best practices for financial reserves. So all of the joint powers agreement that created the coalition is based on all those best practices, and the law firm that helped us do that is familiar with all those other best practices, and the technical consultant Samuel Golding as well. And then when we hire the vendor, the portfolio manager and the general counsel and the coalition board of directors and Samuel Golding perhaps will work together to take those best practices and craft these policies for the coalition, and then we'll sort of socialize those throughout the membership.
I want to be respectful of people's time, and so it is just about 8:30. So are we quite close to the end?
Let's see.
Can you give us can you give us a 1-minute overview of what?
Yes. What's to come?
Yeah,
next.
like what the sneak peek.
Yeah, we'll do
trailer?
the sneak peek.
I'll do homework. I'm afraid I do need to run.
So sneak peek enrollment process. It's going to talk about how if you get energy from Eversource, you are automatically enrolled and you can opt out. If you choose a competitive supplier, then you're unaffected, but you can opt in. So it won't. People who already buy power won't be affected. And then there's sort of, again, just complying with law. There's sort of the rights of the program participants. We do discuss net metering and how that will be an option. And then ensuring discounts for electric assistance program. These are low-income folks who have discounted electricity rates or subsidized electricity rates.
Nice.
And then how the program could be terminated, ensuring that there's not a planned termination date, but there is a couple paragraphs on how it might go. So those are the other required by statute.
So let's go ahead. Any questions before I wanted to see about how much more I can impose on Henry to keep walking us through this and schedule the next work session. Any questions before I do that?
How much more is really left to customize in those sections?
It's not very customizable.
No.
Does long-term also include project maintenance for a long-term use of a project? Like 25 years later, let's say there's had to be a change of an inverter.
Yeah, I think that would sort of all be built into the specific project contract for that. Yeah.
There are some attachments that we have to fill in.
Oh,
that
we have to fill those in.
I've taken a cut at it, and I think that's probably that's going to be a
The
significant
appendices.
Okay.
discussion.
I thought they were just reference docs, so that makes sense.
So Henry, how much more can I impose on you to keep coming back?
No, it's my job. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right, but I still feel that.
That's why they pay him the big bucks,
I
right?
know, I know. Just
Not
like
the
I
big
get the big
bucks,
bucks
the
at Concord.
medium
I
bucks.
laugh nervously.
Yeah.
All right, so
I'm not getting rich sitting at this.
two options is to just go with our normal August meeting, which I think was August. I can't remember. It's the first Tuesday in August. Once you all are confirmed and we have that first Tuesday in August on the agenda, will be what is the best day for everyone to meet. So it won't necessarily always be a Tuesday, but we'll see what works for everyone. But that first Tuesday in August is what we have currently, and we could just go and have Henry take up the bulk of that agenda as well, like today, or we could try to schedule a work session for after you all get confirmed, hopefully by the town council, but before the August meeting. So like whatever the 20th, and so then you'll have like the next Tuesday or whatever.
Does
Or
the August meeting already have a robust agenda? Is there stuff you want to get?
not
through
really. The
besides
only
this?
other big thing is if Josh wanted to come again and walk us through the different things, but I think that we were kind of talking about doing that by email. Was that accurate?
What time in August?
It's the first Tuesday in August. I should probably pull up my calendar anyway. The first Tuesday in August is the 2nd.
Potentially.
Okay. So if we did it the week, so after the 20th, and I hope that everybody's able to make it to the town council meeting on the 20th for your own confirmations as well as for the resolution. You have Thursday and Friday of that week. Do we ever do anything on weekends? I don't think so. And then the following week, which is the 25th through the 29th, if anybody wanted to. Is there a day that people just throw out a day, time, or not, or we just go with August? Hands for just going with August 2nd.
Is
I'm
there,
in favor of going with August.
yeah, is there a reason we need to do it? Or
No, I don't think so. I don't know. We had held a special work session this last time, so I didn't know if we were going to try to push it and have like some finalized product in the from the committee to go to the council in the summer or be ready by September. But
Seems like a week. It's really a week.
yeah.
difference,
All right.
so.
We'll do it for August then, and August 2nd, Henry.
August 2nd. Oh, am I still? Oh, I didn't know I'm gonna do that.
Oops.
Just to be clear, you don't have to be at the town council meeting for your confirmation. It's nice that they can come and see you, or you see the council and they see who you are. But
7 o'clock?
yeah, correct, yes. But it's not mandatory.
But you all
Just
want to
if
come
you-
for the resolution.
I was gonna
anyway.
say I'm gonna come for the resolution to support that. So.
So, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I wasn't aware you're invited 2 towns to come speak. at
Yeah,
that
I've been
meeting?
in discussion with, and I thought I went through you to even speak with Steve, and maybe not. Steve and I had copied Wendy, and Tony was on that as well.
Cool.
And so Steve has offered at least 15 minutes for a presentation.
Who are the 2 towns? Just-
Hanover and Concord. Well, Concord's a city. I guess they're both cities, so I should say cities.
Forgive me, I gotta find
Yes,
it.
I'm so sorry.
Pleasure to
August
meet you
2nd.
all.
Thank
Nice to
you
meet
so
you.
much.
Yeah.
Right.
8:35. I apologize. But I think if there's no other business, then we'll just adjourn. This was a non-quorum meeting anyway, and you're free to go, or you're free to chat.
Thank you guys very
Thank
much
you so
for.
much.